Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Jessica Squirrel, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how I made this card featuring the cute mice from Clearly Besotted stamp set Feeling Fruity. This card is for the Color Throwdown challenge. The colors for this week's challenge were orange, pink, green, and purple. So for this I am stamping the little mouse in the grapes, the little mouse in the apple, the little mouse in the strawberry, and the little mouse in the orange. I have stamped them all using an alcohol-friendly ink. For the mice, I am going to be using W00, W2, and W5. I start by using the lightest color and go over the entire mouse body, ears, feet, hands. On this one though, I mess up and I start coloring the apple. I had to restamp that one. I thought about going over it with the green color, but I didn't want it to be a dull, muted green. So I just restamped it off screen. Since I'm coloring multiple critters with the same fur color, I do assembly line style with this. I just color them, each one, the light color, and then go in with my next color on each of them, and then the next color on each of them, and just continue until I'm finished coloring all of them. For this particular color combination, I do have to work at the blend a little bit more, and you'll see me go over it multiple times with the lightest color, trying to soften the darkest color just a little bit. I do this anytime I don't have colors close enough to each other, and for my warm grays especially, I do not own a lot of those. Next I use R30. I use this color for the inside of the ears, for all of their noses, and for their little cheeks. To keep the inside of the ears from being too bright, I go over it with my W00 marker. For my grapes, I use colors V05, V06, and V09. Now, this particular color blend, the V09 is very dark compared to the first two colors, but I didn't mind that because I wanted to give the grapes a more grape look. If you've ever looked at them in the light, sometimes parts of them are very, very purple, and then some of them look almost black. So I didn't mind that very stark contrast between the colors. I did blend it out a little bit to try to keep it from being too harsh. Like right here, my grapes look crazy. They just do. But I work with it a little bit more, adding more layers of color, and eventually it doesn't look quite so crazy. So I got a little ahead of myself, but the orange colors are Y38, YR16, and YR07 for the orange. After blending this color a little bit, I do go over the little dotty areas and add a darker color, but then I realized there wasn't a lot of contrast, so I come in with R08 and add a little bit of that to the shadowed areas. Now for my pink strawberry, I used RV21, RV23, and RV25. The reason my strawberry is pink and not red is so that it would match the Color Throwdown challenge colors this week. I absolutely love these little mice in the fruit. I think they are so cute. Clearly Besotted has some of the cutest little critters. I love all of the food ones, and I already love critters, so critters and food, total win for me. For my green apple, I used YG05, YG13, and YG17. For the green, for the leaves and the stems, I use YG05 and YG09. I just wanted the green to be a little bit different on the stem and the leaf of the apple than the apple itself. So I actually had to bring in G05 and G09 to darken it up a bit. I then use my white jelly roll in size 10 to clean up any of the areas that I might have got outside the lines. And here I forgot I missed part of the strawberry, so I had to color that in. But then I add little highlights or shine marks on the fruit, and I dot the little seeds of the strawberry. I'm going to cut out my mice, and then I'm going to cut out 2 rectangle scalloped frames, a little bit smaller than A2 size. For one of them, I'm going to cut off the scalloped edges. Here I have a strawberry and flower embossing folder. I run the small cut-off piece in it just to give my card a little bit more texture. Next, using colors YR16, YG05, RV23, and V05, I am going to color through a stencil on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel. I'm using Lawn Fawn's new plaid stencil for this, but I'm not going to use it as a plaid. I'm actually just going to make diagonal stripes. I really liked the varying widths of the diagonal stripes. It actually reminds me of that zebra fruit stripe gum. I used to love that stuff as a kid, and I don't understand now because it loses its flavor in like 2 seconds. Trying to color in the stencil with markers was a little bit of a challenge. I think it would have been better if I had pixie spray or some other kind of removable adhesive on the back of it, but I didn't. So when I do remove my stencil, you'll see my lines aren't perfect, and I'm definitely not making it all the way to the center of the panel, but it's not going to matter because it's going to be covered up, and the little imperfections don't really bother me. I am bringing in the second stencil to the Plaid Builder stencil from Lawn Fawn. I just wanted to add the additional colors and make the stripes a little bit closer to each other. So here I will be alternating my pink and my purple colors. Here you can see how bad that panel truly looks, and then I lay over the additional panels and it doesn't look so bad anymore. I like it this way. I had decided I was going to stack the little mice on the side, and it took me forever to figure out what sentiment I was going to put up there. I finally decided on thanks from the Lawn Fawn thank you set. I can't remember the name exactly, but I will have it linked in the description box below. And it's coordinating dies. Because I don't have any paper that's exactly that color, I used the markers to color on a scrap piece of paper so that I could heat emboss over the top. I just used the die to make sure I was covering a large enough area. To heat emboss on this panel, I use my anti-static powder bag, I use Versamark ink, and for this particular one I am going to use Ranger White embossing powder. These are all the same things that I will be using when I create the little sentiment strip that's going to go under the word thanks. Now that my sentiment is heat embossed, I am going to use its coordinating die and some low-tack tape and run it through my die cutting machine. I absolutely love Lawn Fawn sentiment dies. They cut out so beautifully, and I love the little kind of scripty look that the words have. I should note that the purple that I used for thanks and then the green that I'm going to use for the rest of my sentiment, those are both colors that I used for my background stripes. For the rest of my sentiment, I used Simon Says Stamps, Fruit from the Heart. There is a little sentiment strip in there that says, "For helping me grow," and I thought that worked with the little fruit mice. You will notice in a lot of my cards that I mix and match sentiments, stamps, and dies from various companies. It's one of my favorite things to do. For this particular card, I have used Clearly Besotted stamps, Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. I have used Simon Says Stamps stamp set. I have used a honeybee stamp, scallop dies. So yeah, I just like mixing all the things. Oh, and Avriel. I used Avriel dies. These are the sentiment label dies. I'm using this little die to cut out my sentiment in a strip. Occasionally I will use my paper trimmer to do this, and then sometimes I will use an X-Acto knife, but it's nice to be able to just get a fully clean cut in one single go with the dies. Here I decided my stripe panel was just a little bit too big, so I used my paper trimmer and trim it down just a little bit. I think I cut it down 1/8 of an inch on each side. Once my striped panel was trimmed down to the right size that I was happy with, I then glue my panels together. I use liquid glue to make sure that I have some wiggle room when I am placing them on there. I am notoriously bad for using score tape for this. I always get something crooked, and with score tape, it's pretty much done. Like once you set it down, it's where it's going to be permanently. Then I lay my mice back on my card panel just to make sure that I have them where I want them to be, and so I can start gluing things down. I decided that the word thanks was a little too flat, so I decided to cut out 2 more little thanks from the dies and glue them together. Adding additional layers behind it just gave it a little bit more dimension without trying to cut teeny tiny little pieces of foam. That being said, if I didn't have the die for this, well, one, it wouldn't be cut out like that, but just if it happened to be, then yeah, I probably would spend the time to cut teeny tiny little ridiculously small strips to go behind the word. But thankfully, I have the die, so I can get dimension without the foam tape. Speaking of foam tape, I decided I'd pop up my little mice. I just wanted them to be raised up just a little bit from the background. I am using some very, very thin foam tape. This does not give a lot of bulk at all. For my placement of the mice, I start with the very bottom one, and then I kind of lay the other ones above it. I didn't want them all to be squished at the bottom or squished at the top. I wanted them to be pretty evenly spaced out. Now that my mice are in place, I can attach my sentiments. I start with the little strip because I want it to be slightly under the word thanks. As you can see here, I struggle with it just a little bit, trying to get it level and not super crooked. And then I realized after I started to put the word thanks down, it wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. I actually had hoped that it would be a little bit higher on my card, but I guess overall I'm still happy with it. I seem to always struggle with at least 1 or 2 things for each card that I make. Here I'm using liquid glue to attach the card panel onto the card base. And my card is done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will be back again with another video soon. Thank you all so much for watching.